What was all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. Meaningful connection, and of course, one of his advocacy and the author of the book, Unconditional Communication, other than Mr. David Firth.
Good to meet you, Daniel. Good to meet you. Good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. David. I'm Book 101 Review, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, sure. So my name is David Firth. I am not, by the way, David Firth, the animator. If you put David Firth into Google, you get some very weird
Mhm.
things. I am David Firth, the management consultant and executive coach, originally from England, now living with my beautiful wife in Colorado. And I have had a interesting career. I started out in theatre, which we might get to. But for the last 30 years, I've been consulting to businesses around the world, and it's usually on the topic of communication. Still, after all these years, people call up and say, David, we have a communication problem around
Mm.
here. And that's the invitation.
Communication problem. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. David. Thank you. Thank you so much. So today let's talk about, of course, your book, Unconditional Communication. Let's talk about the core philosophy. The word unconditional is a powerful and often reserved for love. What is a radical fundamental shift in the intent that transformation ordinary dialogue into unconditional communication?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you're right, it does. I mean, usually the word unconditional leads to love. And why? Because unconditional love, we have this sense that unconditional love is the sort of largest expression of love that we can inhabit. It's without
Mm,
condition. I love my wife, Kerry. We've been married 35 years. I love her for who she is. I no longer need to be different from what she is. It is unconditional. And it's the
mm,
same love that we have for our boys, our kids, for people who are listening, for their close ones. It's unconditional. It's without condition. It never stops. It never changes. With communication, I worked out that, as I said, I get still after all these years, still get calls because organizations or individuals have communication challenges. And I'm thinking, well, why is that the case? We've been teaching people good communication skills for decades. Why are these things not working? And so, what I was trying to do in this book is to try and get to some of the ideas behind what we are teaching people to see if there needs to be a different way.
in different way, yeah, for sure. So the cause of conditioning, Mr. David, before we shape better futures, we
Mm.
have to diagnose the present. What are the most common conditions we silently place in our everyday conversations that guarantee disconnection or conflict?
I think the central ones are they're not the ones we talk about, but they're the most present and they are most conditioning of the communication we're about to have. And that is that most of the communication that leaders start with in their daily life is conditional upon them looking good and sounding good,
Hmm.
or sounding strong, or sounding confident, or sounding right, or whatever it is. And that's all good. We need leaders who are confident. But the
Hmm.
thing is, it's an unrealistic expectation to have on others that they are always those things. And actually, if they let go of some of those conditions, that the best thing that could happen in this communication is that I sound smart or I sound like I've got the answer. If I have a different objective for the communication, maybe different things would happen.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. And beyond the technique, Mr. David, this will bigger than the active listening tips. How is conditional communication less set of skills and more stance of or a way of being in relation to another person?
Yeah, it is a way of being. I believe it is a way of being. It's a place you are coming from. When I came into the business world from theatre in the early 1990s, basically my clients, when they talked about communication, wanted to look good, sound good. Hey, David, I've got a speech coming up at the conference. I want to look impressive. And it was all about them. And the place they were coming from is me. Yeah. And what shall I say and how shall I say it so that I can be impressive? But we live in a world now where no leader can provide for us what needs to be created together. And so the communication needs to tap into the potential of other people. And you can't get there by saying, look at me, don't I sound good, don't I sound strong? You get there from opening up the conversation into other people's skills and mindsets and capabilities and gifts and talents.
Mm. Gift and talents. I like that. So, Mr. David, let's talk about the mechanics and how it works in practice.
Sure.
The title ends with together, yet the work often starts within. How does one have the communicate with themselves with their own triggers, biases, and stories before they can possibly show up unconditionally for someone else?
Well, I think it's a great question because it starts actually from that within place. It's where am I coming from when I have this conversation with my team? Am I coming from anywhere which is to do with me being right or successful or impressive? Or am I really focused on something else? And what internal work can I do to get to the place where this communication is about us in the whole team? Let's say I'm a leader in a business and I got a team. The communication is about us and our collective future. Yeah.
Mm,
So that's a mindset shift away from this. How can I look impressive during my 25 slides of presentation? Yeah. So how can and then the mechanic of it, I start with a different question. The
mm,
majority of trained communication skills trainings, and I know because I used to do this myself before I learned otherwise, start with a question, what shall I say and how shall I say it? And those are good questions to ask, but not straight away. The question to ask is, who is my audience and what do they need?
mhm,
Because the audience's need is how they are listening to us. And there's no amount of me being an impressive, having a great story, having a great set of communication skills, which is going to overcome how they are listening to themselves through the story they have about me or this topic or the future. So I have to start with a different question. Who is my audience and what do they need?
mhm. Yes, definitely. And Mr. David, a huge barrier is the one other person's defensiveness. What does the
Mm.
unconditional communication do differently in those first few seconds of tension that can prevent conversation from spiraling into a battle? Isn't it,
Yes,
right?
oh, too right, too right. And that's. But before I come to, and I do have an answer for that. But before I come into that, that's a product of teaching people to start with. What shall I say and how shall I say it?
Hmm.
Because your needs and your triggers and your feelings about this are not part of that consideration. And so of course when I start talking about something that sounds like it's important to me as a leader but not to you because you've had a different experience or whatever, you're going to trigger defensiveness. So that what I'm saying with this work is the very things that we've been teaching business leaders to do well, have a clear message and say it very well, maybe sometimes triggers the very stuff we're trying to overcome, which is this fighting, this separation, this polarization, this defensiveness. So
Hmm.
again, how do I do this? Number one, I get myself first of all into a mindset that this is actually about us and our future together. And then maybe I start with listening. I start with saying, and it's not active listening. Thank you for mentioning that. Active listening is one of the most annoying things I think the business world has ever created. We might come to that later. But I start with listening. Tell me, Daniel,
Hmm.
John, Jenny, how do you see this topic we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Project X and what's
Hmm.
going to happen to Project X next month. How do you see that? Start with what they want to say rather than what you want to say about it. And then from that, weave in what they have said into what you are talking about together so that you can find a shared way forward, you know?
Hmm. Definitely, yes. And let's talk about the curiosity engine. You emphasize curiosity over being right. What is a simple, repeatable question or mindset that can reignite genuine curiosity when you are in heated discussion and absolutely believe you are correct? I'm correct.
Yeah,
I'm correct.
yeah, and yeah, I know you live in Vancouver, but you know what's going on in America about everybody's correct, no matter. um,
True.
well, first of all, I mean that mindset is no longer. Me being right is never going to come across as somebody else as something they want to hear because they've got the equal thing in their head. So as a mindset, I've got to start from a different place. I've got to find out what we are committed to together. You know, Kerry and I have been married 35 years. We happen to get married in a church, but actually the marriage ceremonies, from what I know all around the world, are very similar. They are an exchange of a description of what we are committing to. In the marriage I got into, in the ceremony I got into, it was, do you take this woman, do you take this man to be your lawful one, as long as you both shall live. So it's a condition that we are discussing before we say yes or no, and then we give a promise. Yeah. And it's
Hmm.
only because we have said, yeah, we're committed to the same outcome. We're going to be together forever, and we're going to be together in good times and bad, and richness and poorness, and sick health and good health. Yeah, I'm signing up for that. So the marriage ceremony is a great metaphor for starting with something that we can agree with. What are we
Hmm.
committed to together that is bigger than our need to be right in defense of each other, attacking defense structures? And it's important, I think, to find that together.
Hmm.
Yeah. The bigger,
Definitely.
the bigger context, the bigger story. I mean, I work for big organizations, and they will tell me a lot that they feel like they have conflicting targets. That the people in this department have got different targets to them. And whether that's true or not, nevertheless, the shared context is they all work for the same company. They don't work for the competitor. So whatever it feels like with these apparently competitive things, they're actually all on the same side, which is trying to be the more successful company and whatever. And
Hmm.
they often forget that because that thing you're talking about, the attack and defense, human beings love that. It's deep down in our lizard brain, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Definitely. And so, Mr. David, let's talk about the vulnerability.
Mm.
Mm. This approach seems to require courageous vulnerability. How do you navigate the fear that being unconditional, dropping your defense first, will make you target or be seen as a weak, especially in a high stakes environments?
Yeah. I think things have changed so much. When I came into the business world, and I was working mostly in England back then, so it was a particular culture, but the boss was seen as perfect. They didn't have any flaws. That dissolved over the years, and now we know deep down, because of our curiosity about different people, celebrities, whatever, through social media, we know that however our boss shows up, they're probably not perfect. they're probably they're probably far from perfect. Yeah. So it's not like I'm trying to. If I'm the leader thinking about being vulnerable, it's not like I'm trying to protect my perfectness, because it's out. Everybody knows I'm not perfect, including, by the way, me as a leader. I know I'm not perfect. So it's not like I'm trying to protect something.
Hmm.
But what the vulnerability does is vulnerability is a form of storytelling, and it's epitomizing that great Japanese saying about fall down 7 times, stand up 8. The vulnerability says, I, like you, fall down, and I, like you, can find a way to stand up. Sometimes I doubt myself, but here I am standing up. So a story I can tell a group of people that says, here was a time when I fell down, had financial challenges, had a relationship challenge, health challenge, whatever it is. But here's how I dealt with it and rose back up.
Hmm.
That's a universal story. That's the fundamental story that we all go to the movies to watch every time. Yeah. Heroes, the Incredible Hulk
Yes.
almost dies. Superman almost dies.
Go ahead.
All
Yeah.
our heroes almost dies, and they get back up. And that's why we go to the movie, even though we know how it's going to end.
Hmm.
And so vulnerability in business and politics, heaven forbid, is a form of storytelling to say, ultimately, we're all the same here.
We need a backup. People to be a hero for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Mr. David, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, I'm working on 2 books at the moment. There's a number of my books. I've got to the point, Daniel, where all this grey hair says that I'm getting older, and there's a sort of legacy conversation going on inside me at the moment. Part of that is I just want to get a lot of the stuff I've been teaching over the years out into the world. So the book I'm writing, one of the books I'm writing this year is called How to Communicate Good, which is actually about all of the tools and techniques and models and so on I've been teaching over the years, with a
Hmm.
particular emphasis on we know in this world what it's like to communicate not good. I mean, bad, evil, whatever. Here's what it takes to communicate good into the world. Yeah, so that's that one book. And then the other book I'm working on at the moment, which is part of my legacy, is a book called Ratty and Angelo, which is about the ratty voice in our heads, the negative voice, the undermining voice that so many people acknowledge, and how we can deal with it. I'm trying to aim that at a much younger audience as well, because my clients have said, that Ratty and Angelo distinction, David, that helps me as an adult leader, but I know my kids need it, you know,
Hmm.
because they've got that first sense of the ratty voice whispering in their ear saying, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, there's somebody better than you, So it's what can we do about that?
Yes, definitely. And thank you for that goals and good luck and looking for more success, Mr. David. And
Thank
what
you.
what would be a piece of advice for those people out there want to be an author like you?
Oh.
Let's do Mr. David as an author.
So here's my how to write a book in 30 seconds. Number one, start with the title.
Mm-hmm.
I always think I've written pretty good titles. My first book was called How to Make Work Fun. My second book was called Sacred Business. My third book, Corporate Fool. This book, 15 books later, was called Unconditional. So the title first, some sort of idea you've got, then write the subtitle, because the title is the thing that attracts the attention on Amazon, or in my day back in the bookstore. The subtitle is the promise, and the promise of my subtitle in this book is shaping better relationships and bigger futures together. So the subtitle is a how-to. So that's the second thing you write. Then you write the back cover blurb. You write the thing that the publisher usually says about the book. David Firth in this book goes blah 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 blah. You write that for yourself and see if you're still interested, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just fill in the gap in between the front cover and the back cover.
Filling the gap. We love that. We love
Yeah.
that, Mr.
But this is
David.
but seriously, Daniel, there's a seriousness behind that joke. I mean, it is a joke, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also serious because a lot of people open up the blank page and start writing stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need that sense of purpose that a title and subtitle gives you, and a sense of your own sort of marketing of the idea, which is a back cover blurb. That's a sort of purpose that will drive you on and give you the energy to overcome things like, oh my God, I'm not very good at this, or I don't want to do it today, or whatever. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, Mr. David, thank you for that advice. And can you
Pleasure.
please recommend a book of books that influence your journey?
Yeah, the one that always comes to mind when I think of that is a book by a guy called Peter Block. Peter Block is famous in my world of management consultancy. He's a bit of a sort of hero. He wrote the Bible of consulting called Flawless Consulting, which is in and of itself is just an amazing book. Um, but wrote a book called The Answer to How is Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's done most of his work in the business world and recently more in community, nevertheless, I think it's a very universal book, because it says that our conditioning is to ask the how questions, which are the problem solving questions. How do I write a book? How much time will it take? How will I get the energy to continue? How much, and then in business, when we talk about a project, how much will it cost? How have other people done it? They're all good questions, but not at first. The first is yes. Am I yes to this? Have I really done the work on myself to make this a yes, I have to do this, as opposed to, yeah, I feel like
Mhm.
I want to do this as opposed to have to do this. Yeah. And I think it's such a powerful idea. He talks about we need to spend 50% more time in possibility thinking and possibility conversation than we do than into problem solving conversations. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know it's so true because I work with a lot of technical people, engineers. They want to dive straight into the problem solving, and then they run out of energy and direction and purpose 6 months in because they didn't embed themselves in the possibility of what would it look like if we introduced this technology to our site or built this bridge or whatever. That they need to immerse themselves into that. Yes. Yeah. So the
Mm.
answer to how is yes by Peter Block.
Yes, please do read. Yes, people, highly recommended by Mr. David. So let's talk about when a person in a family or organizations begins to practice this consistently. What is the most unexpected positive side effect you've observed in the group's culture?
I think for the individual, there is a sense of, and this is a big fancy word, intentionality all of a sudden. They're not just reacting to things, they're not just reacting to a conversation. Maybe they are pausing more before they speak. Yeah, they are being silent before they open up their mouth to fill some words in. And then they're choiceful about the words that they say and when they say. I dedicate the unconditional communication book to my dad, who was one of the quietest human beings on the planet. And that made him into a compelling communicator because when he had something to say, it was worth listening to, as opposed to the guy down the street who would never shut up. you know? so I think there's an intentionality that comes from this approach. Let me consider what I'm going to say here and how will it make a difference? Will it be helpful to other people? And then I think for the group, there's a much more sense of this we together because we are being more vulnerable together. We are being more authentic. We are sharing. We're getting back into the shared purpose of things as opposed to into the activity of problem solving and busyness and stuff, which
Mhm.
is very draining. Yeah. So those two things, I would
Yeah,
say.
yes, definitely very draining for sure. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. David, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in its sixth season as well, comedy 101 third season, and my food 101 in sixth season two, geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 our fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101, fourth season, and Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, Bible Verses 101 are my baby podcasts. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast, Mr. David.
That's very impressive, Daniel. I
Thank
knew you're
you.
proficient, but I didn't know you were that prolific.
Thank you. So, the ultimate hope, Mr. David, finishing your book, what is the one feeling or experience you most hope for a reader has their way next important conversation?
I think you the hope is that you experience the very thing that you are looking for. I mean, I don't know how many of the things you talk about in all of those beautiful podcasts mention connection, but I think that's one of the number one human drives. We want to connect to others. We have
Mm,
all sorts of problems connecting to others, but it doesn't deny the fact that almost like our natural drive is to be connected to others. There is one, and then there is two. There is Adam, and then there is Eve. There's David, and then there is Kerry. And 35 years later, we've had three kids, and they always that drive to connection. And I think if we can realize that we can create that connection through a more intentional, gentle, curious way of communicating rather than how do I sound? Do I look good yet? I think we get a sense of, oh my God, that's what it feels like to be truly connected to another
mhm.
human being.
Connection, connection for sure. And we love to connect with Mr. David. So, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. David. I'm telling you to invite our listeners to support your books or whatever projects that you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you want to know more about me, my website, davidfirth.com. So look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. David Firth, because if you support him, for sure more and more empowering books like this to rise. So, I have one more question, Mr. David, before I will let you go. For someone overwhelmed, what is one the micro habit, something that takes less than 60 seconds? They can start practicing today or orient themselves toward this mindset.
Someone who's overwhelmed, the cure for overwhelm is sense of purpose. So the question I need to ask myself in the middle of this overwhelm is to say, what is the one thing I can be more focused on in terms of my higher purpose in the next day than I have today? Clarity of purpose is the answer to overwhelm.
Start your purpose, people. Start with your. Is it why or how?
Why? Why? How later? Why? Yes
Then,
to the why and then the how.
okay. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. David. Purpose with why, not people, not how. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Mr. David, thank you so much for your time.
Great pleasure. Thank you for having me, Daniel. All the best.
Likewise. More to come, people. See you soon.